Sanibonani nonke emakhaya babukeleni. Welcome to yet another exciting edition of your favorite show, Yilungelo, Lakho. It's your right. We're coming to you live khona la mamba phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure. Lo hlelo ke lunilethela okuthinta nina phela njengabathengi mayelana namalungelo enu. Mbukele sicela ukuthi niqaphele ukuthi phela lolu hlelo elisakaza ngomsombuluko okwamanje seluthuthela phela ngelanga langolwesibili kusukela ngomhla ka6 kule nyanga ezayo. My birth month ngo-April, ukukhumbule lokho. So from u-April sizohamba ke singabe sabroadcasta ngomsombuluko, so bese singena ngolwesibili at a different time slot esobuye sinichazele futhi nina ngayo emakhaya. Okwamanje mbukele singene shiqe odwabeni lwethu la namhlanje ke lapho sobe sikhuluma khona ngama-trust funds nezikhalazo phela abaningi benu abanazo ngendlela abaphethwe ngayo lama-trust funds abanye abameli. Asibhekisise udaba lethu. All right, Mbukeli, after being awarded millions of rand in compensation for injuries by a court, many beneficiaries can actually not wait ukuthi bayithole imali yabo, particularly after a long drawn-out legal process yokuthi bayithole lezo imali. But sadly now, this is not always the case, and I'm sure niyakwazi lokho. Some parents in South Johannesburg are infuriated after the court ordered that their funds amounting to millions of rand be placed in the hands of a trust. I guess
where is my money of Keystone? Because agreement is agreement. Savumelana ukuthi ngiye kumsebenzi ngizagada umntwana.
Bathini babephendula?
Abangiphenduli.
Ubongiwe Ndlovu ngomnye wabo bazali wafaka ibango egameni lomntwana wakhe emva kokwenzakala ngelixa wayembeleka ngo-2003. Ngo-2017 zaphuma zonke imali zakhe. Indawo yokuba loo mali ingene kweyakhe ipokotho, inkundla yayelela ukuba mayifakwe kwi-trust. Uthi kulapho waqala khona inkathazo.
Icase le ngayiwina mina ngo-2017 uNjabulo waqala isikolo ngo-2017 ngoSeptember. Bamthengela kwayena i-wheelchair. I-wheelchair leyo isindala. Ama-brick ibamba one side ayibambi. Isincinci kumntwana. Ngabatshela sekule 2 years batshela ukuthi umntwana i-wheelchair akanayo esikoleni. Bathi hayi sizoyenza kwaphela unyaka. Waqala futhi u-19 u-20 lesikade uqale khona icorona ngaba abaphinda ngathi umntwana akana wheelchair, umntwana uhlala kabuhlungu, uyakhathala i-wheelchair isincinci. Hayi bangayiphenduli indaba yami until today.
OkaNdlovu uthi ukuba ufuna ukulungiselela umntwana wakhe ngokumthengela okwakusolayo uyasokola ukufumana imali ayifunayo. Nokuba ekugqibeleni uyayifumana ifika ekhe walinda ixesha elide. Uthi into yokukhalaza yincitha xesha kuba akahoywa ngabalawuli betrust.
Ndibathatha kuciche baby 3 weeks or 4 weeks or uba efakele ku WhatsApp. Ba ignore ubona ukuthi le WhatsApp bayifundile. Mara bakuphendule. Bathule. Asibaza ama-office abo ukuthi akuphi. Saphonguzwa nje ukuthi abasepitoli. Mina ngiyazi i-office yabo ngiyazi.
Nemali usiyasokola kodwa umntana unida this and that.
Umnqono wakhe wokuba le trust ilawula imali yomntwana wakhe mayitshintshwe akayedwanga kulo mbono.
Kodwa ngiyazi phela ukuthi mina ndinemali yami ngomntana wami. Ngayisokola phela ukuthi ukuze umntana mdada abe right.
Umntana kaSusan Konzapi wenzakala ingqondweni izalwa. Uthi imali ezaphumayo zilawulwa itrust netrust athi isebenza ngendlela engaqondakaliyo.
Uthi le trust iphethe njani?
I-trust datasho ukuthi mina ukuya ngami nje ayimphethanga kahle because ngiyakhala.
Ingaba intoni insusa mabandla?
Asaza ama-ofisi wabo. Abafuni ukusinikeza ama-number phone wabo, ama-cellphone. Ukuthi mangiphelela ngamanzi la ndizofonela ngithi hayi mulungu anginamanzi, anginagesi.
Uthi xa befuna ukuqonda ukuba imali zomntwana wabo zime njani ebhankini abafuni impendulo inesihlahla.
Kule bhenke leyo sifuna ukuyazi phela ukuthi kule bhenke leyo abathi bayivulela umntwana imalini engenayo and izalela bani, and bathi kune imali ezidingo zethu mawukhala sizothola ilokhuzana akula bhenke leyo abasivulele yona for izidingo zethu. Kodwa manje sakhala kwamalezi dingo manje lekwanto lezo esizifunayo asizitholi.
Umcimbi wetrust uxhaphakile xa inkundla isenza izigqibo zemali yebango, kodwa into engaxhaphakanga lulwazi oluthe vetshe ngayo. Ingaba yintoni? Ingaba isebenza njani? Kuvuyisile Mdota, Yilungelo Lakho.
Siyabonga kakhulu kwinsizwa uvuyisile Mdoda ngalo mbiko asididiyele wona. Manje ke mbukela ukhuluma kabanzi phela ngama trust namalungelo alabo phela ngama trust imbukeli kanye namalungelo alabo ekumele bathole izimali zezinqephezelo emva phela kokuthi balimele. Asamukele ivakashi zethu sihlangana naye ku Skype sinaye uSihlonipha Moshidi, yena ke she's the deputy master wenkantolo ephakeme, sibe naye no Giselle Gold olayinini omeleke yena inkampani Fairheads Benefits Services. Giselle, let me start with you on the line. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Tell us a bit about Fairheads Benefits Services, ma'am.
Thanks, Alicia. Fairheads is an organization that runs quite a number of trusts, mostly for children whose parents left money after they were deceased and they were working for a specific company.
Okay.
So the employee benefits and the pension from that company for those children would be paid to Fairheads.
Okay.
We're not the only organization. There are various organizations doing that.
All right.
So that's the main source of trust in our case.
And Giselle, I mean, maybe while you're still there, very quickly, your comment on the insert. We've got two different parents here. The one parent, the child was injured during childbirth. So the child needed assisted living in terms of wheelchair and other medical expenses. But I mean, she's saying that she was being sent from pillar to post in order to acquire any information. She didn't know where the officers of this trustee that was handling the monies for the child were. So she was literally scrambling to get any necessities for the child.
All right, Alicia, in that instance, obviously a trust would have been set up based on an allocation from the Department of Health, isn't it? Yes. Because that child would have, had those unfortunate situations occurring in hospital. So in those instances, often a trust would be established for that child, and that communication that needs to go from the Department of Health to the caregiver or the guardian of that child to inform them about the trust, where it's going to be set up, with whom, who's going to be the trustees, and all of that.
And all the contact information,
family,
yeah.
Yes, so that family knows exactly where to go to be served, to get help.
Thank you so much, Giselle. Hlonipha, Sis Hlonipha, thank you so much for joining us. Ntokazi, let me welcome you. Sis Hlonipha, she's the Deputy Master of the High Court. Ntokazi, when umsebenzi wakho siyawazi, some very worrying news kule insert esibonile Ntokazi. I mean, what is your comment kule insert esibonile? Two different parents, like similar types of struggles, but the common thread here, Sisi, is ukuthi they cannot get access to ama-trustee, laba baphethe imali, of which bayidinga lezi imali in order for their children ukuthi babe right in terms of ama-health needs wabo ba.
Thank you, Sisi. First and foremost, ngiyababingelela ababuki bethu ekhaya, uShlonipha Moshidi, as you've already indicated, and I must just say I'm extending my sympathies to the family. It is really heartbreaking, and basically what they're saying is some of the complaints that we receive in the Master's office regarding the companies that work as trust or trustees, and those are the problems that we encounter. But then be that as it may, I would like to comment in Isha Uguti. Yes, indeed, njengoba ashilo uGiselle, normally when it is a trust that is set up by the court, whether it be because of ERAF matter, meaning it's a motor vehicle accident matter, or whether it be a matter of the Department of Health, eventually the matter will go to court, or there'll be what we call in mediation, and a court order will be issued. The Master of the High Court will be instructed to open up a trust. But then, what is important to Guti, the attorneys who were involved in the whole matter from the onset, they are the ones who are supposed to inform the families and tell them, this is a trust company that will handle your child's fees or monies. And then these are the people who have been appointed as trustees. So the trustees are also, they need to comply, they need to advise our families, we are the trustees, this is the money that we have received, and this is how we are going to handle the fees, the monies, and so forth. But then they do not they do not advise the families, and the families end up banayo lenkinga leyo abomama bakhuluma ngayo khona manje.
Very worrying indeed. Maybe Sihlonipha asiqale ekuqaleni le ndaba. Awusichazele ntokazi just for the benefit of ama viewers wethu. Yini I-trust? Like yini mesikhuluma nge-trust sisuke sikhuluma ngani? And then usichazele ukuthi lo muntu enimbeka as I-trustee usuke sewubani yena?
Aha. I-trust, it's more like a legal institution. I-trust ayifani nama-company. I-trust izimele yodwa. What happens basically, i-founder ye-trust, and ngizoyikhuluma nje kabanzana broadly, i-founder ye-trust, meaning the person who puts money into the trust, will decide, I'm going to put money into this trust. I am going to appoint trustees, because there can be more than one trustee. I'm going to appoint either a trustee or trustees to monitor the funds, to care and to administer the funds for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Now, in this instance, Kuluma Ngayo, the source of the funds is the RAF, the Road Accident Fund. Sometimes the source of the funds is as a result of a mental disability, at best as a result of maybe into and so forth and so forth. But then be that as it may, the source of the funds comes from RAF or from a medical negligence case, and the matter goes to court. But then before it goes to court, obviously it will start with the attorneys. So the attorneys will take the matter through to the court, and the court will issue a court order. In terms of the court order, the master of the High Court will be instructed to appoint, not necessarily appoint, but to appoint trustees. Our trustees now already, we would have been told by the court, our trustees will be this company represented by this person. And then the court order also comes as a form of a trust deed or a trust instrument, because that is the most important document. That document basically.
All right.
Hello?
Yes, can you still hear me? Sihlonipha, go ahead.
Yes, that
I
trust
can hear you now.
document basically is the one that will tell the master and the family that this is the trust. It is formed in the name, and I'll use my name, in the name of Hlonipha Mushidi. Everything that is in this trust must be used for the benefit of Hlonipha Mushidi.
Okay.
It is upon the trustees to inform abazali baka Hlonipha Mushidi that we are now the trustees of this trust, and we've got this much funds held.
All right, Sihlonipha, let us leave it there, because we're getting a bit of a mix-up in terms of sound, and I really want to hear that last point that you're putting through. Mbugeli Ungaindao, remember the lines are open. We're live in studio 011-714-6918 or 714-6919. consumer@sabc.co.za is of course our email address, and siyatholakala futhi on our social media networks. Siyabuya khona manje Ungaindao sikhuluma ngama-trusts, ngama-trustees. Uyiphi wena? Oh, 11714691871469119. Those are the magic numbers on your screen. And of course, consumer@sabc.co.za. If you have any input or comments, sikhona futhi lapha ku Facebook Mbugeli, you can drop ama Facebook messages wenu manje as we're speaking, because I'm going to be reading them later. We are discussing indaba yokuthi uma umntwana wakho or umuntu emndenini eshiyelwa imali ibeka entweni ekuthiwa i-trust, kube nabantu aba-appointwayo ukuthi bagade leyo mali ababizwa ama-trustees. Sifuna ukwazi ukuthi ubudlelwane between labo bantu busebenza kanjani, ngoba phela siyezwa izikhalazo eziningi, abantu abaningi bathi baneyinkinga uma sekumele bathole lezo imali through ama-trustees. Ama-trustees, they don't have the contact information, njengoba sibonile i-case study yethu lapha omama bekhala bethi ingane zabo azinawo ngisho ama-wheelchair. Mbukeli, you can call us in studio. My guest today, very blessed to be with us, is Hlonipha Mushidi, the Deputy Master of the High Court, and of course Miss Giselle Gold. She's there on screen now. Say hello to everybody. She is from Fairhead's Benefit Services. So, Sis Hlonipha, before Kefin Togazi, can you just briefly go back to that last point you were making, Uguti, when it comes to allocation yemali, like what is supposed to be the synergy that is approved by the court between, of course, ama trustees nomndeni walabo bantu ababekelwe imali kwi-trust ma?
No, each and every case must be looked at separately because it's separate cases for different people with different needs. So basically the court will make an order and say the money must be put in a trust, and they will tell us who the trustees are. All the master's office has to do is to appoint those trustees to start working officially. And then at the end of the day, it is incumbent upon the trustees, or it is a duty of the trustees to inform the family and say that we are the trustees in this trust, and we will monitor the funds in such and such a way. The master has not much of a say in that regard because it is a relationship that is between the trustees and the family of the person whose money they are holding. So as I say, it will depend upon case, from one case to the other, because sometimes we find that the funds that they have for one client is, say, for instance, 5 million, whereas the funds they have for another client is just 1 million.
Yes.
Those funds have to cover the needs of the client as far as possible. So you'll find that the payments will be just a little so that the client can be covered and be maintained for a longer period of time. Sometimes the family would expect to buy exorbitant things which under normal circumstances would deplete the funds as quickly as possible. But that is not for the master to say. It is upon the trustee to advise the family accordingly and tell them how the funds are going to be monitored. If they're going to invest the funds, also it is the duty of the trustees to inform them. We're going to invest the funds and only pay out, from the interest of so much and so much, as according to the needs of the client, to try to maintain a standard of living for that patient in this case.
Giselle, I mean, as trustees yourselves, I mean, I suppose the difference in as Usis Hlonipha is explaining there, the difference in each and personal cases makes it rather hard to gauge the problems that are inherent because every person is a different story, and it's very difficult to then say this is a common problem amongst certain cases. But what do you attribute the rise in such complaints where people are merely coming forward and saying they are not being treated fairly by the trustees, or they are not being treated in an open manner, like the trustees are not transparent with them in terms of what exactly they should be getting as per approved court order and so forth?
I think, Alicia, it's very important when trustees are appointed or an administrator is appointed to manage and to look after that trust, that people actually have infrastructure. Because like you said, there are so many different trusts. And the fact of the matter is you need to have a system that you can actually document everything on.
Absolutely.
If, for instance, anybody calls you with a problem, you must be able to go to that specific trust and see the history on that trust. What has been the reasons? What has been the circumstances? What is the arrangement in terms of income payments, in terms of paying for medical stuff and for other things? So you need proper systems, to be able to service anybody properly. You need to have records of when did you make payment, why did you make payment, how long is this money going to last? Is it, and you've got to communicate with the guardian or caregiver of any beneficiary all the time so they know exactly what's going on, what's left, where are the investments held, and so forth. They need to be fully appraised on everything. Communication is key. If you don't communicate with the caregivers and the guardians, they're going to be in the dark and they're going to make their own conclusions of what they think is going on.
Absolutely. Sis Hlonipha, maybe just to rope you in there, Yazi Giselle mentioned something very important there. Uti, there needs to be a system and records. But it seems like when it comes to most of Lama Lokuzana Lawa that come from a public space, let's say Lawa that are court appointed, it seems like there's a lot of problems there because Abantu Bati, even if they do come back to the court, Bazoti, these people that you handed us over to, they're actually not as transparent as we'd like them to be. And it seems like Ikoti in that instance cannot do anything. Abasakon maneuver or give them relevant information as to the way forward to Gutsi manje. So is there currently any systems in place that are guarding and also governing how our trustees are actually operating under our court orders when, sis?
Okay. There are no systems in place as such, but then I can tell you that trusts in general are governed by the Trust Property Control Act.
Yes.
And in terms of what Giselle has indicated there, in terms of the law, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be proper systems in place. But
yes.
Remember, those systems lie with the trustee companies. It doesn't lie with the Office of the Master.
Okay.
Once the ruling has been made, the Office of the Master's responsibility is just to register the trust to appoint those trustees officially and enable them by giving them letters of authority to start functioning as trustees. But once that is done, that we can do. Unfortunately, we receive a lot of complaints from the clients, and in terms of the law allows us as the Office of the Master to go back to the trustees and say, in terms of Section 16, subsection 1, account to us. Tell us what we have done with the funds of the patient so far. And in terms of what Giselle said, they will have to produce to the master and say, these are my bookkeeping. This is what I have done so far.
Yes.
This is how I have used the funds so far. And we will receive that statement, hand it over to the client and say, client or patient, this is how your funds have been used or allocated thus far. And if the patient or client is still not satisfied, then we will say, in terms of Section 16, subsection 2, the master will set up an investigation and they will investigate. But remember, those are costly
procedures, yeah.
Yes. So as a result, some of the clients do not have the money to undergo those investigations, because the master will say, we will set up an investigation, but it is not the master who investigates, because the master doesn't have the resources and the means to investigate. So it goes back again. Yes.
Ibeke lapho Sihlonipha, I want to come back to that point yokuthi wena awunawo ama-powers ukuthi u-investigate kanjani Ntokazi when you appointed the trustees. Mbukela ungayindawo, nazi inumber on your screens. We're coming back shortly after this ad break. Bukele sikhuluma ngama-trust namanje nama-trustees ukuthi uma inkantolo phela i-order ukuthi iy'mali zabantu laba ngabe balimele noma iy'ngane or whatever the situation that deems umuntu ukuthi abekelwe imali endaweni esigodlweni sesikhwama semali ekuthiwa i-trust ephathwa abantu ekuthiwa ama-trustees, iziphi izinto ekumele uzazi wena Mbukeli, because siyabezwa abantu bathi mese beyifuna le imali bashoniswa lena nazi inumber on your screen 0117146918 or 07146919 sangifonela ngani consumer@sabc.co.za, and of course siyatholakala lapha go Facebook. All right, my guest today, the Honorable Sihlonipha Moshidi Yenage Moshishi. She's the Deputy Master of the High Court, alongside Ms. Giselle Gold, who is from Fairheads Benefit Services. Giselle, maybe let's bring you into the conversation. I know I wanted to come back with Hlonipha because she's saying that they don't have the manpower, or the Office of the High Court does not have the manpower to investigate those trustees in case, clients are coming back disgruntled. But is there any service, is there anything that you guys do as an independent trustee? Is there anything that you do if your client comes back and says perhaps they're not happy with the way that the funds have been allocated, or they need an increase, or whatever problems they incur? How do you then assist them, Giselle?
From our side, Alicia, we have what we call a complaints procedure for all our clients. And we have a complaints department, not a big one, hopefully, that deals with complaints coming through.
Yes.
And we make sure we have a turnaround time also within which we respond to a client with a complaint to say, by this date, we will be back with you and we will resolve your complaint. Mm-hmm. And so we take it very seriously. And also in the private sector, I mean, if we don't look after our clients, we're not going to get business.
Absolutely.
And therefore, we take it very seriously that we look after our clients and that we respond to their complaints. And sometimes it's a question of people not necessarily knowing how these things work. So it's a question of education and communication. And often we find that that is the case, so that you can explain to people how things work and why it works in a certain way. And in that sense, people gain confidence and trust in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And that is the big thing. So, that for us is the key thing, communication and education of our clients, and where things have gone wrong on our side and we didn't do the right thing, we have to be responsible to correct it as well. So that, for instance, if there's an investment issue that didn't work the way we communicated, then we've got to stand in and be big enough to do the right thing and to make sure that that person is not worse off than what they should have been if the right thing was done.
So absolutely, transparency is key, is what you're saying here, Giselle.
Exactly, and also in most instances, the trustees are supposed to have insurance of what they're doing, professional insurance for doing what they're doing, and that is called fidelity cover in our instance. So that, for instance, if you have fraud or something that happened on anybody's accounts, you should be able to claim from your insurance to make right to that person what is rightfully theirs. So, you know, it's important to have that insurance as well, because sometimes, for instance, trustees can invest monies with a certain entity and something goes wrong, you know, and it's out of their control. But they must then have the insurance to know that they can claim from that to make sure that that person's assets are back intact again.
Giselle, we
So
can't have
things like that.
trustees. Yes, Giselle, we can't have trustees that are not trustworthy. So that's basically what we're saying today. Let's go to our first caller today. We do have Jasmine all the way from Tembisa. Babu Jasmine, sakwamukela Nsizwa ohlelweni. Thank you so much for staying on the line. Singakusiza kanjani namhlanje?
Yebo sisinjani?
Hi, sikunjani uJasmine? Kunjani sis Jasmine?
Ngiyaphila. Oh sis, nami ngine-complain about the-trust.
Kwenzakaleni ntokazi?
Yo, angazi ngithole i-car accident bengise-primary.
Yeah.
Umama kade ngihamba naye ama-court and stuff and so on. Hayi mekenzakala ukuthi sithola imali, sayithola imali bathi umama makavule i-account e-ABSA. Umama wabuza ukuthi kungani avule i-account e-ABSA. Bathi hayi imali izophuma mekana 18 umntwana manje sengina 21 mase bacela ukuthi bangithengele indlu bayala balukenza zonke izinto asikho isidingo abanginceda ngaso.
Hayibo. Walimala nini Jasmine?
Sorry?
Walimala nini? I think you said you're 21 now. So muse primary ubuna ngakanani sithanda sami?
I think I was 7 or 8 years.
Ubuna 7 or 8 and then waba disabled wangakhona ukuthi usebenze waba nezidingo baku-allocate i-trust.
Bathi e-trust soyithola imali mara kwamanje akusabonakali kanjalo mesicela ukuthi basithengele indlu bathi indlu iyadura bafuna le ithandwa yibo and bathi mebathenga izinto zakhona zoba under i-trust.
But Jasmine, ongitshele sithando sami, have they given you any monies, I mean, leading towards wena uzoba na 21 or bakunike from the time una 18 ila beqale khona ukunikeza imali?
Imali yona bayangibhakela eyokudla every month.
Okay. Since when bekufakela yona? Since primary ulimele?
I think it was 2012 or 13 mase baqedile ngendaba case.
Okay. All right. So manje uthi inkinga yini? You don't have access to imali yakho noma nale bank account uma bathe akayivule imali yakho abakunikezi yona ezisamba?
Abakayikhiphi imali and bathatha kakhulu imali buyele emuva sazi ukuthi ngani sisi imali iyaphela kodwa ihlele ebhenki we-investment. Hayibo.
Okay, Sando sami ngicela ulalele lapha kumabona kude asiza ukuthi u-Deputy Master of the High Court uzothini. Sisihlonipha nangu usisi lapha yana uJasmine uthi walimala ku-accident. I'm sure umzwile i-story sakhe. She was in a car accident in primary. I think she was around 7 or 8 years old. And uthi the only thing trustee has been paying and bathi imali uzoyithola when she's 18. The only thing they've been paying for her is indaba zokudla. Mebethi bafuna imali and what not to go buy a house. They're not even hearing that discussion. And she's come to a point now where she's like, okay, they told her that when she's 18 is when she's going to get the money. But she's 21 and she still hasn't seen any money.
I-trust isebenza kanje sisi. There's a trust document. A court order is in a trust document.
Okay.
For me, it is going to be difficult to address that issue if I don't have sight of the trust document.
Okay.
Because good trust document kulababeka khona indaba yonke. Bayasho ukuthi nizo-maintaina kanje nakanje nakanje.
Okay.
I-trust izophela uma mhlawumbe uba na 18, uma na 21 or uma na whatever age. So kunama-terms and conditions aphakathi kwale document. So I can only respond if I'm able to see that document. But under general, a trust will terminate mhlambe umntwana uma, in this case, if everything is fine with angaguli engqondweni, the trust will have to be terminated uma abamba 18 or 21, depending on what is on the trust document. Or the trust will terminate also mhlambe uma imali ziphelile. And then I also heard her mention in the Bayoguti Ufun Waka.
Yes.
They are able to build for her a home uma ayifuna, but it all depends on the availability of the funds kuleyo trust. It doesn't help if I only have 50,000 holding it in trust for you and you want to build a house that is worth 150,000. It means that I cannot afford it and it trust yakho izophela. Because as I said, remember the purpose of setting up that trust was to ensure to the well-being the patient or the client up until imali iphela or at a certain stage. So the trust document is very important for me to answer that.
Sister Nipa, we're going to pick it up shortly after this break. Mbugeli, the numbers are on your screens. We're going to take another quick ad break. Yilungelo Lakho live on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. No majali. See you now. We're back live Yilungelo Lakho kumamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Ama-trustee nama-trust funds is our topic namhlanje. Izinto ke Mbukeli ezenzakalayo lapha ukuthi abantu phela mase ngabayithola imali siyezwa kodwa ukuthi engathi information ngoba abantu basuke bengazi ukuthi kahle kahle ngoba uyasho usisiphaphama uthi lapha kunama-trust documents wona azokutshela ukuthi yini ekumele uyenze. Nawe sis Jasmine uyasho ukuthi uma uletha lawo ma-trust documents wakho awu5 uzokhona ukuthi abone ukuthi angakusiza kanjani kulolu daba lakho kade sikhuluma ngalo. My guest still usihlonipha Moshishi, the Deputy Master of the High Court, alongside the lovely Giselle Gold from Fairheads Benefit Services. Now, ladies, I want to read you a comment from Facebook, and I want you both to comment on this because I also want to have a little bit of a say on this. It says, it's from Jabulani Nkambule. It says, hi, Alicia at studio. I think that money must go straight to the injured person because these trusts rob the trustees or the beneficiaries and the injured person ends up getting nothing from the trust and it's hurting and justice must play its role in this case. And he's really like mad. So maybe, Giselle, maybe let's come in there. I mean, there's this notion that if trustees are entrusted with this amount of money, they literally just see, some sort of value in that money staying in that account. It's just allegations, as we're saying, but a lot of people say that it's the lawyers or the trustees that are actually mismanaging the trust fund because they don't want to give what is due to the people or the beneficiaries of the trust. And I mean, I know you explained it very nicely earlier on that it's actually the information between the beneficiaries and the trustees that is sometimes not there, which may make people think like that. But what do you say to that?
Yes, I think, first of all, when a trustee is appointed to manage somebody's assets, I think there needs to be a process. If you're going to decide what service provider you're going to use in any instance, you're going to go through some kind of a due diligence process to decide who's the best person to do this. And sometimes I often find that step has been missed. And people are appointed to look after assets on behalf of beneficiaries without the necessary experience, without the necessary systems, like I've mentioned before. And if that process has not been done right up front, and you end up with the wrong party, it's very difficult for that beneficiary or the people that are supposed to benefit from those assets actually to find a remedy. And that is the big problem. And I find that with the court processes and the attorneys representing families and then having to make a decision who to look after that trust. That's where the problem lies. So, and in that instance, I can understand why people want rather the lump sum to be paid to them instead of going through that process. And on the other hand, what you find is also, where people, for instance, in a family, if it's a big amount like 5 million, for instance, that was mentioned earlier, and people don't know how to look after that money, then it also becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then that is why people, for instance, you will know comments that are made about the road accident fund, that it is used as a lottery, because that is what happens when lump sums are paid out. So I think, for me, the big step is there needs to be a process of making sure you appoint a competent, trustworthy person right up front with the necessary systems and infrastructure to be able to look after that money.
Thanks, Giselle.
That's the big thing.
Thank you, Giselle. Sorry to cut you there. Sis Hlonipha, I'm going to take a call first, but I want you to bear this in mind because maybe this is an important subject. Ukuthi, when it comes to Nina appointing those trustees, iyiphi due diligence eniyenzayo Nina to ensure ukuthi at the end of the day it's the beneficiary that's going to ozo benefita lapho. Phumzile all the way ngasekhaya eThekwini. Phumzile sakwamukela ohlelweni kunjani Ntombi yangakithi?
Oh, ngiyabonga uphumzile lokhulumayo.
Kunjani sisiphumzile?
Ngiyaphila, ngicela ukubuza la.
Yebo ntokazi.
Ilokhuzane icourt ayikwazi ungenelela kwimali yakho ukuthi ungasayitholi. Umbuzo wami uthi why icourt ingakwazi ungenelela since ungazikhetheli wena i-trust fund ezoya kuyona imali. Kuba wena uzosethiwa nje imali yakho ka-trust fund awazi ukuthi enekhethoba lo trust fund.
Yes,
inkantolo ingangeneleli. Umbuzo wami wokuqala lo.
Okay. Owesibili uthini?
Owesibili uthi umbuzo since kunale mali abathi i-interest abanikeza yona every month. Okusho ukuthi le mali yakho nje ilamsam yakho nje bihleli kubona ayizali ile nzalo le abanikeza yona futhi ihleli nje ayizali.
Yes.
Nalokho futhi yindaba ungayikhetheleli wena i-trust ilokhuzane i-trust fund ezoya kuyona owazi ukuthi izozala as much as usuke uthanda wena ukuthi izali. Ngoba manje lo trust fund iyona esikusiqoqela ukuthi hayi mina ngithanda ukuthi kuzala 200 rand uzo 200 rand wona uzokondla ingane. Manje lo 200 rand uthola ukuthi is not enough kanti kube uyayithatha wena le mali yakho ilamsam uyise kwi-trust fund at least ozikhethele wena
or istokfela nyane
owazi kahle ukuthi izokuzalela imali enkulu abo yilokho yilo umbuzo yami engifuna ukuyibuza.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu
njengoba uthola le mali oyitholayo iyaphunguka yini le mali esuke ikwile sami.
All right, ngiyabonga kakhulu sisiphumzile Ntombi yangakithi. Sis Hlonipha, I think this is also like very in line with the question that we're doing. I mean, Sisiphumzile wants to know exactly what I wanted to know. Like what due diligence is applied by the court when choosing the trustee, and like do you make sure that the beneficiaries are the ones that are going to benefit? Because she's asking, why can't I, as a person who's been allocated this money, then decide where do I put this money, who is going to handle it? And she was also talking about something very important, that she's heard that the money that is within a trust fund does not accrue any interest. So she says, I mean, as a normal thinking person, you'd want to obviously take that lump sum of money and go put it in a place where it could obviously grow.
Okay, Sisiphumzile, I hear you know Mama Yilungelo akhuluma, but it's unfortunate, as I said before, it's a matter of education, it's a matter of communication. The master of the High Court is totally different from the High Court where the matter is heard. But then be that as it may, in a process land only. Ikala somewhere, ikala guma attorneys. From the attorneys izoya guma advocates. From advocates izoya a court. A court, that's where the order is issued. Amaphepha wonke adrafte ama-attorney nama-advocate bavumelana bona. In that process, they were supposed to agree with the client or bring the client in. Bamtele bathi sifuna ukuyenza so le ndaba yakho. Khumbula ukuthi uma baya e-court bamele the client or the patient abamelanga i-master of the High Court. So imininingwane yonke memele ikhulunywe lapho. Ithi seyiya e-court endaba le ndaba e-court iye seyifike bakhethile ukuthi bafuna bani abe yi-trustee, bafuna yiphi company, bafuna izimali zibhadelwe kanjani. Bese uma seyiza kithi ku-master of the High Court, we are just civil servants. Uma seyiza kithi iza sekuyi-order of the court. And order of the court, there is nothing we can say. Asina say, we implement. And when we implement...
But Sis Hlonipha, are you saying that... Sorry, Sis Hlonipha, I just want to interject very quickly there. Are you saying then that by the time this thing gets to you, for you to then decide who the trustees are, there had to have been conversations with the beneficiaries before coming to you? Precisely. So they are given those options ukuthi they can also decide ukuthi mali yabo izogadwa uyiphi trustee.
Precisely. That is a conversation between a client, nomeli wakhe, nama advocate wakhe.
Okay.
The RAF. I-master is the last step in the whole process.
Okay. All right. Let's leave it then, Ntokazi, and take our final ad break okwamanje before siye khefini uthi uZamani Christopher msele ukuthi 50% It's fine with me. Beka phansi 50% and then le enye ungayinikeza i-trust fund-ke bese beyayibonela ukuthi benzani ngayo. We're back shortly after this. Don't go away. It's our final segment. Mbukele, let's take our final caller on the line. Upotsello, all the way in Haniju. Ntate Sello, thank you so much for joining us on Yilungelo Lakho. Re ka o thusa jwang vandag?
Le kae mamas?
Re teng papa le kae lona?
Ai ke teng man mamas.
Re ka o thusa jwang papa?
Ya mamas a ke itse man hona le tšhelete e leng gore mogala re sa la re šiela a sa bereka ko BNDC site tsa ko Mhlanga go ba bona mamas.
Okay, ke papa ha o ntsa bereka ko?
Ehe.
Okay.
Anong sa le ba tsang go Trustees sa Lamo ba re last born the really 6.
Yes.
Either 18 years re tshwantse re thole tšhelete.
Okay.
And then whenever o na le 30 something nna ke na le 54 years ba bona mama.
Yes.
Mara re sa feel it kaofela.
Ba re ke eng? Ba re bothata ke eng Ntate Sello?
Irile ke ya go bona ba re no bona a ba khone o bona hore okay o ishile mara a hona proof hona mo mara
Ntate Sello o ile neng ko go lo buditsa ka ditšhelete tseno o ile ka nako e o na le 18?
No bona ke ya hona ba nong mama. Ya ke hona ke ya hona ba nong ile a ke re last year ke re no man ka re dipampiri di kala di sa bonana e re go utlo hore di tšhelete yona e tsamaya.
So ba re abana le di-records no?
Ka re le bona ba re no tšhelete e teng banong problem go nyake ha proof wa ke re.
Ba re proof e jwang e Ntate Sello ba o file mnyetla?
Ya azanke mama gore mo hotle mo o re ke a zama gore.
Okay, and then Ntate Sello ha o gutlela go company e papa ha wa ntsa iberekela ba reng bona ko?
Ko sinkiki ko teng hona banong after ho tlhahella ko office tsa Salamo mama.
Okay, so ba re ba khone o thusa ko?
Ya ko ba bona banong hora hore nna tsantsi ke reng ke boele morao.
And then when una le di document tse ifeng in case master of the deputy master ka o thusa?
Di teng tse di bontshang di tsona di duplicate tse wa bona mama.
Okay, so papa o hlokahetse neng?
Mama ke sebaka man ke na 20 years hona bana ba go flipile ka le dipampira ka di tshwara mo nna ke no wena.
Okay papa Sello. Okay re bone gore deputy master of the high court ka o thusa na kupumamele ko TV ya ha Ntate Sello. Sislonipha we are mozo ubaba lana, but I think is there maybe, let's talk about this, is there a statute between uklaimela imali yakho or anything like that? Does it exist in this topic where abantu bahamba bayoklemela ama funds wabo sis?
The way I bega it talks about two things. I'm not quite sure whether he's talking about a trust or whether he's talking about funds that have been placed in the Guardian's Fund. Because in the Office of the Master, we also have the Guardian's Fund.
Okay.
Some of the pension funds are deposited in the Guardian's Fund for the benefit of the beneficiaries.
Okay.
But then if it's such a situation, then emsebenzini, la ubaba bekasebenza khona, they ought to have given them a document that indicates that your funds are now in the Guardian's Fund. And they will have to go a Guardian's Fund bayobuza, depending which baguphi. If they are in Pretoria, they can ask a Guardian's Fund in Pretoria. Or they can, if Durban, they can also go to the Guardian's Fund at Durban bayobuza. So I'm not quite sure what the information about Imeganza. But what I'm saying basically, it could be two things. It could be a trust, it could be Guardian's Fund. But either way, we need documents. We need some form of documentation as a leader, which is what we search our systems and so forth. But then the best advice I can give, ukuthi please mababuyele emsebenzini la ubaba bekasebenza khona or mabaye khona eSanlam bacele i-proof, documentary proof, something that we can start from ezokwazi ukuthi siqhubekele ngayo phambili.
All right, siyabonga kakhulu ma. Giselle, maybe let's bring you in there. Look, I mean, I'm going to take some simple questions as we're about to leave now. Can now a caregiver or a parent ask them to look at how those specific funds are being allocated through you as the trustees? And do you allow them that information?
Alicia, definitely. They have a right to that information. They're supposed to receive regular communication about what's going on, what money's been spent, what money's been taken for fees, what growth has there been on the investments, you know, and a full statement. They need to get that information. They're entitled to that. But one thing I'd like to mention, which we haven't discussed throughout this yet, I would like for government, through the Master's Office, to actually consider establishing an ombudsman facility for people who have trusts.
Thank you so much, Giselle.
You know, because they really, really need that, you know, to make sure that there's an objective external party that can actually take care of people's concerns. Because I sometimes do get a sense that people's lack of financial literacy is abused. And that should not be the case. And I really think there's a big, massive need for an ombudsman facility.
Oh, all right, Giselle, I'm with you on that one. Very quickly, Sistonepa, can we get an ombudsman? 2 seconds.
We can get an ombudsman, it's a good idea, but together with that, we need a regulator, because our trustees or our trust companies, they need to be regulated.
Absolutely.
If there's no regulation of that, an ombudsman will not do anything.
Thank you so much, ladies. Those were my guests today. Usislonipa Moshishi, she's the Deputy Master of the High Court, alongside the lovely Miss Giselle Gold of the Fairheads Benefit Services. Kusathiwa senkulu inkinga ekhona, because before kuba nayo ngisho i-ombud kumele kuqale kube nama-proper systems in place, of which we figured out today ukuthi ama-systems akakabi khona when it comes to ama-allocation alama-trust fund. Bukela ukhumbule, from April we'll be broadcasting in a new time slot, on a new day, on a Tuesday. So mina-ke owakajali umntana ngisekhona kodwa kumanje njengomsombuluko. So I'll see you next time khona la kwilungelo lakho SABC 1 eMzansi, for sure. Nisale kahle. Bye bye.